So, on this video we'll be doing a quick introduction on collisions and physics in Unity. This video will probably be a little shorter than usual, so let's just get into it. Folks, before we do anything else, I want to change our layout. Right now our Windows layout looks fine, but I think we can do better. So what we need to do is go to the Windows tab, open it, go to Layouts, and then there are some presets here. Currently our layout is the default layout. I'll pick the tall layout. Right now I want to see both the game view and the scene view at the same time instead of switching between them. So what I will do is grab the game view, the game window, and then just drag it right here. Now I also want these two views to have the equal space, 50-50, so I will just be pulling this like this, maybe. There we go, this is perfect. Different layouts feel most comfortable for different people, so I encourage you to experiment a little bit, play around with the presets, or maybe make your own layout. Right now the tall layout is fine for me. Right now, aside from our directional light and main camera, we only have a cube as a game object. But I want to add two more objects to our scene. The first is gonna be the ground object, and then the second is gonna be an obstacle. So let's do just that. We're gonna create two different 3D objects. First is gonna be a plane for the ground, and then the other is gonna be a cube for the obstacle. Now let's position these objects. We're gonna need to make the ground object, the ground plane, a little bit bigger, just to feel more comfortable. And then the cubes will be side to side. This looks fine. Right now our scene has two cube objects. I want one of them to be the player object, the player character, and then the other cube, I want the other cube to be an obstacle. We need to find a way to differentiate these two cubes so that they look different. And to do that, we need to create a material. Making a new folder in our assets. Let's call it materials to keep it simple. And then inside, let's create a material. This should be called obstacle, but you can give it a different name. Let's give the obstacle a red color. Maybe you can pick another color, but I will pick in a red color. So in order to change a materials color, we need to go to the materials inspector window, and then we'll move here to the albedo, click on it, and then pick any color you want. Now that we have our materials new color, we need to assign the material to our obstacle cube. We can do this in two different ways. First, we will grab the material and then drag it along the cube. And there we go. The material is now a component of the obstacle cube. But you can also grab the cube and then drag it to the obstacle cube's name in the hierarchy window too. It will do the same thing. So now that we have our obstacle, I want to test if when we start the game, when we start debugging, if our player cube will collide with the obstacle cube. If you remember in my previous video, we wrote our first lines of code, and I made it so when we start debugging, the player cube will start to move backwards. So let's try it out. Oh, hold on. Folks, that's the wrong direction, hold on. I thought the obstacle was behind the player cube, but turns out the obstacle was on the other cube's right side. So knowing that, we need to change our code a little bit, so that instead of going backwards, we need our cube to go right way, to the right. Moving back to our editor, let's try again. And no, there is no collision. Our player cube just goes through our obstacle. I want to make so the two cubes collide when they collide. We want to make so the two cubes don't pace into each other, and that's where we get into physics. In Unity, we have a component named RigidBody. RigidBody allows a game object to respond to physics. When you attach a RigidBody to a game object, it makes it so the game object can fall due to gravity and collide with other game objects. Since we want these two cubes to collide, we need to add a RigidBody to both of them. Let's select our obstacle cube, go to its inspector window, go to this add component button, click it, and then search for RigidBody, and there you can see RigidBody and the RigidBody 2D. Since our project is 3D, we're gonna naturally go for the 3D one. And we're gonna do the same for our other cube. Click the add component button and then add a RigidBody. Now let's try debugging again to see if the two cubes will collide this time. And there we go. As you can see, as I said before, the RigidBody component also makes the object be able to fall due to gravity. Let me show you that too. Let me set up an example. Let's raise this cube a little bit. This cube has a RigidBody, so when we start debugging the game, it will fall due to the gravity. And just like that. Now our two cube game objects are colliding physically. That's pretty good, but what if we want to make it so something happens when they collide? Maybe we can write some code that will run only when collision happens. For that, let's return to Visual Studio. Now we can't write what we want in the update method, because we don't want the collision event to happen every frame. We want it to happen We want our collision event to happen when collision begins, and only when collision begins. So to do that, we need to create a new method. We will write void on collision enter, and then press enter so that the IDE can finish the method. Let's try that again. Void on collision enter, and then instead of writing everything, you can just press enter, so that the IDE can write the rest of the method. There we go. On collision enter methods only runs when collision happens, so that the code inside the on collision enter methods also runs only when collision happens. We're gonna make it so when our two cubes collide, there's gonna be some message displayed. We're gonna write debug.log and then add a string value. For example, we can write something like we hit something, or maybe the cube hit an obstacle. There we go, that's better. Saving our script, let's head back to our editor. Where is the console? Folks, we need the console, hold on. Go to the window tab, go to general, and then you will see console here. We need this in our layout. Let's just, there we go. Put it next to the game view. There we go. Now, ideally, if our code works, when we debug our game, the console is gonna give us two messages. The first message will happen when our cube collides with our ground object, and then the second will happen when our cube collides with the obstacle. Let's try debugging. 1 and then 2, there it is. Now I want to add a little detail into our onCollisionEnter, so that when our cube collides with something, in our message we are given the collided object's name. Collided. Is that even a word?
Collided.
Nice. But anyway, let's upgrade our code. In our onCollisionEnter method, you can see a parameter named collision. This parameter represents the object that our cube collides with. So upon collision, we need to take the name of the object that collision represents. Let's delete this string text, and instead let's start with collision dot gameObject dot name. Let's save our script and try. But first I want to give our objects names so that we don't get confused. The white cube, let's call it something like player character. That's good enough. The plane, aka the ground, that should just be ground. And then the obstacle, well, that's just called the obstacle. So ideally, when we start debugging and running the game, the console window will give us two messages. The first will be ground, and then the second will be obstacle. Let's see if that will work. The ground and then obstacle, there we go. But what if we wanna do a combination? For example, our message may start with a string text, but may end with a collision game object in it. What we need to do is return to Visual Studio and then combine the two values together. So we'll add a string text. And there we go. We can't add this to our string value like this. Well, we can, but it won't give us the game object's name. It will just give a text that says collision game object name. That's because this right here is not a string. This is a string, but this is not. So we need to keep the two of them separate. Let's save our script again and try. Now ideally, our two messages should say the cube hits ground and then the cube hits obstacle. Let's see if that will work that way. And it does. Well, that was it for today's video. I wanted to do this. Hold on, I need to check my script. I wanted this video to be a little bit more simple, and I hope it was. So, goodbye.